G'day, I'm Alister Christie from LearnDelphi.tv, and I'm here with Malcolm Groves from Code Partners in Australia. G'day, Malcolm.
Hey, Alister, how are you, mate?
Pretty good. Yeah, certainly can't complain. So it's still in the middle of the sort of COVID-19 thing at the moment. So I haven't really left the house for over 2 weeks now. So
is that terribly different? Like, this isn't a
yeah, so I generally don't go out too much anyway, but there's even like just haven't been to the supermarket or anything, so I haven't really left the property at all or come into contact with anyone but wife and son. So
yeah. I mean, it's weird, like, because we have an office here in Sydney, but I often work from home, and most of the people who work for me work from home. So in a lot of ways, it's not that different. Certainly 9 to 5, it's not that different. We were already doing a lot of our meetings and even delivering training courses and that sort of stuff online. So from that angle, it hasn't changed that much, but it's after 5 o'clock when things have changed, because you're still not going anywhere.
Yeah, indeed. So what sort of things do you use for your online, to run your business online?
Well, it varies. I mean, if we're doing it, I guess there's the obvious things like the online meeting stuff. And so a lot of that we do with whatever the name of it this week is. It used to be Google Hangouts, and then it was Google Meet, and I don't know what it is anymore.
Duo?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's Google, so the name changes on a monthly basis. But whatever used to be Google Hangouts, and for most things that's pretty good. Actually very good. There's nothing to install, just works in the browser, whatever. So if we're setting it up, we tend to default to that, but it also depends on who we're doing it with. Like, some customers have got company standards of things, so you end up, probably like most people, you end up with everything installed. You've got GoToMeeting installed, you've got Zoom installed, you've got 15 different versions of everything installed. So, and to be honest, they all do much the same thing, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So from that angle, the video stuff, that's what we use. But then, I mean, because we're so distributed, we got people all over the place, in multiple states in Australia, up in Asia, in Eastern Europe, all over the place. So pretty much all of our systems have to be online anyway, because whether this was going on or not, I've never had everyone in the same room at the same time. So everything is cloud-based. So, whether it's Bitbucket or Jira or GitHub, or even, finance stuff like Xero or whatever, it's just all online. So.
Right. Have you got any team members that you haven't met in person?
Oh, yeah. I talk to them all every day. But more than half of them I've never met in the flesh. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's quite a. I mean, that would be like unheard of 20 years ago. Having actually paying people that you've never met, never shook hands with.
Yeah,
I suppose large corporations it might be. The CEO wouldn't meet many of the employees, but yeah.
Well, but I when I think of it, so Code Partners is not very big. We're less than 20 people, less than 15 people. So my view of what a big company is not terribly big in the scheme of things. Like, my first job, even before I finished uni, I worked for Westpac, which for people outside of this part of the world is a pretty big bank. And I hated it. I hated working for such a large company. And that's the last time I worked for any company that big, where there were, I can't remember, whatever there was, 50,000 people or more, I don't know. So I think the biggest company I've worked for since then is maybe 1,000 or 2, which was probably Borland. And I'm much happier in companies where you pretty much know everybody.
I definitely agree. I've worked at ANZ Bank for a while, and sort of there's a sort of a few buildings in an area, and I think there's about 1,400 employees or something, just in those buildings. And yeah, 50,000 worldwide or something like that. But it's just kind of insane. And the banks are annoying because you can't do anything. There's so much bureaucracy. It's frustrating. I mean, understandably, I mean, it's a bank. You know, have large levels of security and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that's fully understandable. Just if you find a bug, you know, to get that bug fixed requires quite a lot of effort. Often hardly any programming, but lots of documentation and stuff. So I didn't enjoy that at all.
Yeah.
And I worked on some legal practice management software. And it was a small team within a big company, and so working in a small team was good. But the code was horrific. It was probably the worst large code base I've worked with. I mean, the software it's really good software, but really difficult to work with. And you've got to fix a bug, and you spend a day learning about that piece of software, you know, that part of the software package and what it does and what it's meant to do, and then
so you can spend 20 minutes fixing the bug.
Yeah, exactly. So as a software developer, that's really frustrating. Actually, you're spending hardly any time programming, and most of the time just trying to work out what the software does. And I ended up we had an earthquake, and if you remember the Kakura earthquake. It was quite a substantial earthquake, but happened kind of in the middle of nowhere. Okay. But
how long ago was this?
2016. So
okay.
It caused quite a bit of damage in Wellington. There's quite a few buildings that had to come down. And the building I happened to work in at the time was not fit for working in. And so I was working from home for months, and that was really I found it frustrating because of the amount of communication that was required for me to be able to understand what was going on with the software, and then getting in touch with that person and what have you. And that wasn't fun.
I think it's good though to work on those sorts of projects, especially early on. Like, I think the first two after uni, the first two big pieces of software that I worked on. The first one, actually, I can't blame on anybody because it was all me. I created it, so the nightmare that it became is my nightmare. And then the second one, I inherited someone's nightmare. But and as horrible as it was, those two experiences were really good, because from that point on, I became super opinionated about what is the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do. And of course, you change your mind over time, but that experience, both inheriting someone's mess and having to deal with it, and then creating my own mess and realizing that even though I had good intentions at the start, just the passage of time and not taking care of certain things over that period of time led me to this nightmare. Kind of informed a bunch of my opinions and attitudes from that point on. Like today, even today, if I'm doing something, I still have moments where I think, no, that's going to become like, and I think back to one of those two projects. That's how we ended up there. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's almost good to throw people into that, I think.
Yeah. That's certainly my sort of first programming job. Working with real estate software, which I still do occasionally. I'm still doing that one day a week at the moment. I kind of felt, because it was a really small company, I was the only developer, and there was two of us. There was actually two of us there for a while. I kind of felt it was hard. I didn't feel I was like learning from anyone. Yeah, I was kind of discovering everything for myself, and and then going from that to larger organizations. I realized, actually, no, I was a pretty good developer. It's kind of contrasting, and I think to get good at development, most developers only work 9 to 5, and so that's their thing. And if you want to be any good, you do have to spend quite a bit of time of your own time, sort of honing your craft. It's not often that large corporations will, they might send you out on a course occasionally or something like that. But if you spend company time reading a book or something, that's kind of frowned upon. Yeah, which is kind of insane. I did numbers so I'm, as you know, I'm writing a book, and I did a little section at the end of what developer productivity, even a tiny improvement in developer productivity can be a huge difference to the bottom line for a company, because a developer might be just in round terms they might pay a salary of $100,000, and it might cost them another $50,000 in computers and rent and the share of the secretarial admin and that kind of thing. And so that developer might return $200,000 of value, so $50,000 of the profit. And if you increase that developer productivity by 10%, you go from that 10% goes on to 200,000, so it's now worth 220,000. So their profit with the 10% extra productivity is 40% profit. So I've always, in the large organizations I've worked in, been kind of shocked how little effort has been put into improving the productivity of developers.
Yeah.
I
think partly that, I agree with you, but I think for a large company, that's a difficult sell, because the person you're selling it to is not necessarily measured on profit. They're measured on something else. They're measured on hitting dates, or they're measured on some other KPI or something or other. And the company profit is this abstract, weird thing that, everybody wants the company to be profitable, but it doesn't affect me directly. What affects me directly every quarter when I get my bonus are these things. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, thousands of lines written, or
that's right.
Equally ridiculous metric.
Yeah, bugs fixed. All those things could be totally gamed.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how so the best way to go about measuring such metrics, to measure developer productivity and know if, because everything's so easily gamed, that if it's number of commits, or you just change the way you work and suddenly you're
I don't know whether you want to go down this rabbit hole, because I have
I'd love to.
I have a particular view on this, and I'm not sure it's terribly interesting to this audience. I don't know. But I remember working for Borland. Borland was really the first company that I had anything to do with salespeople. Yeah, like prior to that, I probably had a similar view of salespeople that a lot of technical people have. Yeah, it's the used car salesman sort of view of salespeople. Yeah. And fortunately at Borland, I worked with, there were some of those, but I also worked with a bunch of really very, very good salespeople, who were not that cliche at all. And so early on, I realized that, hang on, it's like any profession. There's good ones and there's dodgy ones. Yeah. But seeing Borland over the years, we'd go to these company gatherings where everyone had to drink the Kool-Aid and get revved up for the year's activities and everything, and every year it was all about alignment and getting everyone running in the same direction and all the rest of it. But it seemed to me that was never going to happen, because everybody's compensation was not aligned. The salespeople were getting their bonuses and their compensation based on how much they sold, and the developers were getting, the guys building the products that the salespeople were selling were not compensated on how many they sold. It was compensated on other things, hitting shipping dates and all that sort of stuff. So these were totally misaligned. And so I kind of formed this view that if you want a company to be aligned around something, you have to pick what it is that really matters to the company. What's the one measure or the two measures or whatever it is, but what's the thing that we're going to call success? If it's sales, great. If it's profit, great. If it's quality of the product, whatever, it doesn't matter. Pick one, pay everybody based off that. Everybody, developers, salespeople. If the janitor has a portion of their bonus, if they get a bonus and it's based on something, it needs to be based on that same thing. And so, sure, you might choose sales, yeah. And so I've had developers, when I've spouted this opinion, I've had developers say to me, well, but I have no impact on sales. I can make a product and then the lazy salespeople don't sell it, or marketing screw up or something like that, and then I don't get my bonus. Well, yeah, that could happen, but lots of things could always happen. You know, you could be paid on something else, on hitting your shipping dates, and then the lazy members of your team stop you from hitting your shipping dates. So these things are always at risk. But if everyone's paid on the same thing, you know, a developer, how do you impact sales? Well, you make a bloody great product, and you have fantastic quality. And if salespeople are paid on sales, then again, they know what they're lined up with. Everyone across the company gets lined up. No one ever does it, of course. But that's my view, that if you want everyone aligned, pick one measure for the company, pay everyone on it.
Indeed.
Anyway, sorry.
Quite often.
That bit's the one that's going to fall on the cutting room floor after this.
Oh, no. I want to do as little editing as possible. Yeah, I think, quite often the easiest thing to measure is profitability, because, you know, you have to for accounting purposes anyway. So it's, but yeah.
But then I guess you get into, is it profitability this quarter or this year?
Yeah.
Because you can always, you know, if let's say the product's bad quality, and you know, we've all seen this happen at various companies. The product's not up to quality yet, but you've got a target to hit for profitability this quarter. So you ship it anyway, and you pump up the marketing, and this quarter you might hit that profitability target because people buy it not aware. And then next quarter, everyone realizes, hang on, this is a dog. And sales plummet, but you've hit that first quarter's profitability, so you're happy, you know. So the hard bit is finding that measure that actually plays to what the company wants. Does the company want yearly profit or long-term profit? Well, then suddenly quality becomes much more of an important thing.
Yeah, indeed.
And this is your learn sales or learn company compensation TV, isn't it? It's not learn Delphi.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's an aspect of software development that you've got to be aware of it as a developer. Yeah, hopefully not just developers will be watching this, but I suspect it'll just be mostly Delphi people. But yeah, indeed. I suppose possibly the occasional team leader or manager or something like that. But
it's going to pick up my idea and run with it, and that'll be
maybe.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. So I should probably ask you what Code Partners does.
What's
your sort of function?
What's my function personally, or the company?
Well, the company, yourself, yeah.
So I guess in some ways, Code Partners is my continuing quest not to have to work for a big company. So what we do, I've spent the last 20, not quite 25 years, maybe. No more. Yeah, the last 25 years, I guess, or a bit less, since I first joined Borland. Working around software, but also where my customers were developers. Yeah. So prior to that, I was still in software, but my customers at one stage were dentists, and at another stage was a freight company, and all sorts of stuff. But from when I first joined Borland, suddenly our customers were other people building software. Yeah. And I've loved that. It's been such a pleasure to work in that domain, because it's a domain I love. Yeah, it's kind of like the perfect situation. Like I'm totally passionate about software development, and a lot of the people I get to deal with every day are other people who are also passionate about software development. Yeah.
And software developers are generally pretty smart, and
for
the most part, nice people.
Yeah,
you get the occasional person who's not great, but
Yeah, but they're smart, but they can also be challenging, but also in a good way. You know, like constantly reminded that, you know, I learned this early on when I joined Ball, and I'm constantly reminded of it, is that you very rarely know what your customers are going to do with your software. You think you know, and you might know some of the things, but they'll come up with other things that you never even thought of. And so that's really cool. You know, but anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track. So 25 or nearly 25 years ago, I started working in this space, and so I wanted to continue doing that. And so when the time rolled around to start my own company, I knew I wanted to be in the development space. And so we are a software company that targets customers doing software development, basically, and our goal is to help them build better software. Yep. Now that could be a bunch of different things. That could just be about helping them get the right tools and products to help them do that. It could be around training and actually teaching them different ways of building software. It could be around actually services to help them do some of their projects. So we've got some of the guys who work for me, we actually do project work for customers, either as additional members of someone's team, or in some cases people don't have a team. You know, maybe they used to have one guy who built some software for them, and that software's become, you know, central to their business, but then that person's moved on, got another job, whatever. And so now, in some cases, they don't have a team, they have code partners. We do the work for them. So it all varies. And it started out being around the Embarcadero tools, but we've gradually expanded that. So we do still focus on the Embarcadero tools a lot. But we also sort of have expanded into the DevOps space. So we're doing a lot of stuff around continuous delivery, around Jenkins and those sorts of things, around automated testing and security scanning, and containers and Docker and Kubernetes and those sorts of things. So, but just to keep us, I guess, interested, we stay focused around that space of, we want to work with people who are building custom software. Yeah, because that's so cool to me. Is I can go in with one customer and they're in the real estate space, but they're building software for real estate, and then next month you're working with someone who's doing legal software, and then medical software, and then one customer we worked with was their software was interfacing with like UHF radios, and so it's constantly interesting. You know, you're learning all these different business domains and how the business works in order to be able to help build their software. So, yeah, I pinch myself. I mean, everyone has bad days, but I pinch myself constantly that, geez, I get paid to do this. This is awesome.
Excellent. Yeah. So I noticed you've done some videos on Docker and stuff. I've not. I mean, certainly your ADUG presentation last year. Was it last year?
You had to sit through twice.
Yes. No. So I've actually I find it quite helpful watching them twice. It's always quite, you know, you kind of pick up other things the second time through that you didn't tend to notice, because you pay you know, because you can kind of get the main feel of the presentation, and then you can sort of pick up on all the sort of nuances of the sort of, there's a interesting thing there I should try, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, the Docker stuff. This is one of the things I like doing, is that you know, through one of our other customers, unrelated to Delphi or Embarcadero or whatever, we started getting exposed to Docker and started using it and learning it and understanding what it was all about. But Docker, especially at the beginning, and even to a degree now, Docker has this reputation as being about web developers for some reason. You know, it's not correct, but it has this thing about it, and a lot of the examples you'll see are about web, and or either web or building large scalable systems, so that you can go from dealing with 100 customers today on a website to dealing with 10,000 this afternoon when something spikes. Yeah. Well, that's all fine, but that's not what a lot of people do in their jobs. And especially in the Embarcadero world, a lot of people aren't doing that kind of stuff. And so what I like doing is, once I've learned about stuff like that, is going, okay, well, which bits of this are actually useful to someone who's a client-server developer or someone who's building a Delphi application. Yeah. Forget all of the hipster, highly scalable cloud stuff, which some Delphi guys are doing, don't get me wrong, but most aren't. Well, is there any value in this for, most people in this world? And so that's what that session was about saying, okay, forget all of that stuff. How do I get some value out of this? And that's why my focus on that was about A, understanding it, but B, then looking at it all in the dev cycle. Forget production. How does this make it easier for me to test against 2 or 3 different database backends or different versions of database backends, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of, a lot of the time, that's where I'm coming from, is saying, well, righto, how do I take this thing that's all shiny and new and apparently only for unicorns and say, righto, how did real people use it?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. I've still not had a play with it yet, but I've very sidetracked at the moment because I've got a 5.5-month-old son at the moment, so he's it's taking up huge quantity of time, of course, which is all good. What's that?
How are you sleeping?
Not well.
No.
It varies. I mean, he was for a while sleeping through the night, but now at the moment he's awake every sort of hour, 2 hours, something like that, which is pretty tough. But hopefully we'll get through it. Feeling okay at the moment.
You'll get through it. Everyone does, but the fact that everyone gets through it doesn't make it any easier to get through. When you're in the middle of it, it's still horrible.
Yeah, I mean, the flexibility that I haven't got much work on at the moment, so it's like nice and easy and stuff, kind of semi-retired, so it's good. I don't know how I'd cope if I was working a full-time job. It would just be insane. It would be, I certainly wouldn't be able to give my best as an employee in that regard. Yeah. Being able to focus and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Is that your first kid?
Yes. Yeah. Indeed. So kind of come quite late to the party. Yeah. So that's pretty good. And the other thing that I'm spinning, well, there's of course having the farm. That takes up huge quantity of time, but that's all good. And as you know, I'm writing a couple of books, which you've been reading.
Why do one book at a time when you can do a couple?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I started one and then spoke to Shane von Optenbush. I can never remember his name properly, but and he's like just really switched on in terms of kind of business kind of things. And he said, split it into 3 books. And I couldn't find a way of splitting it into 3, but there were 2. Because splitting code faster in Delphi and code better in Delphi was a good sort of line to draw.
Yep.
And I could divide most things along that line, but some things kind of fall in the middle, which I've kind of thrown on one side or the other. So,
cool. But
yeah, I noticed you got through half of it, I think, in sort of one day. So.
Yeah, well, I guess a bit like you, with everything going on at the moment with COVID-19 and everything, it's weird. Some of our like, there's lots of different parts of the business, some around Embarcadero and some around other products and then training and services and whatever. Some parts of it have gone quite quiet, as you'd expect. Other parts have got really busy. And so, which I'm grateful for, I'm glad it all didn't go quiet. But it means that my days are all over the shop. Some days I've just got 12, 15 hours of stuff to try and squeeze in. And other days I've got big empty patches to fill. Yeah, and so it just lined up beautifully that I think it was Monday. I had this empty window, and I was like, right, I'm gonna get onto Alister's book and charge through a bunch of it. So now I'm just waiting for the next window to come along.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That's good. It's surprising, like the stuff you've been editing. At least two other people, including myself, two other people have already read through and proofed it and what have you, and you still picked up quite a few mistakes.
And then you'll find a bunch after you send it to publish. So
yeah, no doubt. But I'll try and get as many people to proof it as I can, who are willing.
So how are you going to release it?
I haven't entirely decided. So I can either go through a publisher such as O'Reilly or Pact or something like that, but kind of reluctant to go through Pact because they do these big deep discounts on the $5 books and stuff like that. But I notice they have a lot of Delphi books, so it's kind of a bit of an ecosystem going on there. And I could also, or I could just sort of self-publish it and go through either Amazon directly or Lulu or something like that, or Leanpub even. And I'm not sure because the Delphi community is not huge, and I've got a reasonable amount of influence in it through my videos and stuff. So I'm kind of at the moment I'm kind of leaning towards the lean, publishing myself in some way. Even that there's lots of options to look at. So because I think it'll give me more flexibility in terms of what deals I can do with various people, and I might end up just selling the same number of books if I go through a publisher or do it myself because of the size of the community. So
and as you say, there's some reasonably well defined ways to reach a pretty good chunk of that community. It's not like if you'd written a JavaScript book or something where it's like, well, they're all over the place. How do I get them? Like a Pact or something like that might be really useful in that case. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never written a book, so I get bored 3/4 of the way through a blog post, so I couldn't stick out a book.
Yeah, it's kind of part of the reason I do videos is that I do find writing a bit of a challenge. But yeah, I seem to be okay at it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I like writing. I hate editing. I'll write it, and it's so wordy, and I'm waffling on with all of this stuff. And then becomes the hard work of going, okay, I've got 4 pages. This really should be 3/4 of a page. How do I trim?
And then you've got to read it about 4 or 5 times, and it takes.
So I've started doing more videos lately too, and I'll probably waffle on those as well. But at least people can fast forward.
Yeah, indeed, run it at double speed or whatever.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Was it? I'm curious. Did you? Because you're very familiar with Delphi. Was there anything you picked up that you wasn't aware of before?
In your book?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a few things actually. I've long accepted the fact that this is such a big product that nobody knows at all.
Yeah, indeed.
And even if even if you depending on what you're working on, you might know FireDAC really well, for example, or you might know this part really well, but there's a whole heap of other parts out there that you just haven't touched. So yeah, there were quite a few things. And a few things that I had seen and then promptly forgotten about, and then went, oh wow, that's right, I could have been using that. So some of it was small stuff like the multi-paste. I had seen that before, but had promptly forgotten about it, and maybe I saw it at your presentation at ADUG. I can't remember.
I think I did that. Yeah.
But then and so partly on Monday, going through the sections of the book that I went through, it was a case of oh, wow, look at that. And then I jump over to Delphi and spend 15 minutes playing with it. And I go, no, Malcolm, get back to the book. So, yeah, some stuff like that. But then also I got so excited about some of the shortcut keys because there's always so much more to learn in there.
It's nuts. Yeah, there are so many of them. And I've just like there's a lot that I don't use every day that I probably should in there. There's some. Oh, there's one. I was just thinking about making a short video on it that shifts the cursor between the beginning and end of your selection. So
I didn't even notice that one.
So if you highlight something and then you've mishighlighted it at the beginning, but you can press Shift down arrow and to increase your the number of lines you've highlighted, but you can't go the other direction very easily. But there's I forget, it's one of those weird Control K O kind of multi-key combination, which is why I can't remember it. But yeah, you can shift the cursor back to the beginning of the selection, and then you go Shift up arrow or Shift left arrow to change your selection.
I'll have to go off and look at that one. The other one that drove me off to play with it for about 5 minutes before I went back to the book. I can't remember what the key combination is. You might remember, but it's the one where it gradually expands the scope of the
Control
selection.
W. Yeah.
Is it Control W?
Yeah.
Awesome. Like you've got your cursor in the middle of an identifier, for example.
Or a string or
whatever.
Yeah.
And you Control W takes string. So Control W takes you out to the string, and then Control W again expands the selection out to the whole line.
Parentheses
and then do it again, and it takes it out to the whole if block or whatever it is, and you can keep going all the way out to the whole procedure, and magic.
Yeah, I know.
And it's probably, the ironic thing is it's probably been there since Delphi 1 or even Turbo something back in the day. No,
that one came with Castalia, I think.
Oh, did it?
So when it was integrated, when Castalia was integrated into Delphi. I can't even think what version of. Oh, it's a recent one. It might be like Seattle or something like that.
Okay. Well, now I don't feel so bad because sometimes I find these things and go, oh, new feature. And then I actually look at it and find out, new in last century in Delphi 2. So. Yeah,
it is quite funny. I mean, I've certainly learned a lot by writing a book because, you go, you have, I want to write something and then and then you say, oh, there's this, what's this thing beside it in the menu, and you go, okay.
4 hours later, you haven't written any video. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's certainly an excellent way of learning stuff. I mean, I learned doing the videos on the VCL, which are on, on my website and Embarcadero Academy. I just learned an insane amount of stuff making those videos because I just went through everything. Even reading through the source to find out what things do and.
Yeah, and it's not often you get a chance to do that, really, is just to sit down and go, right, I'm going to explore this really extensively.
Yeah, so you learn all sorts of obscure bits and pieces about for instance, in list view and tree view, you can have a descendant of the list view item or tree node. So if you're doing like a say a file list box or something like that, you could have a custom list view item that has all the details about the file.
Mm-hmm.
So file size, modified date, all that kind of stuff associated with that list view item. And there's an event that when a new list view item is created, you can specify what class you want.
Oh, okay, nice.
So I think that was introduced in Delphi 2007 or something like that. And that was kind of one of the things that sort of stuck in my mind about the things I've learned. I think I've used it once, maybe twice since I learned it, but it's
But that's also, like, you just made me think of. I mean, there's a conversation has been going on in the last 24 hours on the ADUG mailing list about someone posted about wanting to or needing to find out what seemed simple at first of needing to find out the IP address of the machine.
Yes.
Of course, that's deceptively simple, and it suddenly splinters out into, well, I've got a Wi-Fi adapter, and I've got an Ethernet adapter, and I've also got VMware running, so that creates a bunch of virtual adapters.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah, and some people came up with some I thought really clever solutions to figuring out, well, which of all of these IP addresses is the actual IP address that's got external internet access. Like I think Vincent Parrott posted one about, well, using Indy to try and connect to 8.8.8.8, and then looking at there's some property of Indy that says what address did we use. I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then someone took it to UDP, so it didn't actually try and connect. And then after this big long trail of conversation, which was terribly educational, so there's total value in it. Natalie Vincent just said, well, there's this Windows API method called getBest adapter or something like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, that's the one. So I guess, it's kind of like there's always 15 different ways to do something. But what's kind of cool, I think, is that, for a product that's been around for so long, that community is still there. And even, something like the ADUG mailing list, it's a local community, but
Yeah, indeed.
But still, so frequently there's threads on it about something that you think is not going to be interesting, and then through it you go, oh, I've just learned something about this product that I've been using for 20-something years.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, a lot with, particularly with the making videos and writing and stuff. You pick up all sorts of weird things that. Yeah. Which is good, but I'm not actually doing a lot of development at the moment, which I'm a bit frustrated about. But I'll get back into that.
You're not like just about every developer I've ever known who has 15 half-done projects going on.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I gotta get this, and should make an app, finish this, and put it in the Google Play Store and all that kind of stuff. I mean, a bunch of stuff that I've played around with. I've written a very simple application in FireMonkey for Android, which is basically a Indy web server, which you can do REST calls to send text messages.
Oh, like telephone text messages.
Yeah, so it's basically a web to text, or make phone calls even. So you can send a web request, and your cell phone will go and call something.
Okay, it's like a remote control, a REST-based remote control.
So, and that like the basis of that was hardly any lines of code at all. It was trivial. It expanded somewhat, and I basically wanted to be able to do that because a lot of the like the services, online services for sending SMS messages, they charge you like 20 cents a text or something, 10 cents a text, which is quite expensive. And then you have your cell phone, which has an unlimited plan on it.
Going unused.
So this is for the real estate software I've been developing over the years. Previously, I've got all sorts of mechanisms for sending text messages. Whether it be through, I think Skype can do it, and but it's pretty unreliable. And there's various web-based ones and stuff like this. But this, this is working really well.
Okay.
So. But you just got to.
And where does the REST server run? Does that run on the phone, or is that
on the phone? Yeah. The web server runs a web server. Yeah, so it's just running the Indy HTTP server.
Yeah.
So basically, drop that on.
That's interesting. I've always had this solution looking for a problem in my mind. I've always thought it would be really interesting to have, most web apps, sorry, that's a bad way of saying it. Most apps on phones that communicate over the network are clients to some server somewhere. And I've always thought, well, why not have a server on the phone? And especially I thought this could be interesting for localized communication. Like if there's 2 or 3 people in one area, and they've all got their phones, if having a server on their phones that could, receive requests from the other ones is interesting. I don't know what it's interesting for, but technically, and like I said, it's a solution looking for a problem as far as I'm concerned. Like, even if it's as simple as having like little localized games that don't require remote communications, but if you and your friends are together and you've got this app on your phone and it can just talk locally and
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's a app tethering candidate.
Well, I guess
kind of thing,
actually that it is. So again, I'm defining a new technology when it's already in the box. Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, I think if you look at it, typical cell phone is, I don't know, probably way more powerful than any web server was 30 years ago. Yeah. It's quite ridiculous the amount of power you've got in your pocket these days. It's and then of course from there you can access out to whatever web services for translating or voice recognition and all that kind of stuff. This pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Have you got any sort of apps that you've kind of been working on that have never sort of seen the light of day? Yeah,
totally. I've got. Where do we start? I think I'm a good starter of things, and I'm not a very good finisher of things. Partly, I think I lose interest in things partway through. Like, often these things to me, I don't recognize this at the start. I've got this idea for something, and I start it, and then I get to a point where I've learnt about the problem, or I've learnt what I wanted to learn, or I've proven what I wanted to prove about can I do this. And then after that, it's all of the important but not terribly interesting stuff of actually finishing it and making it a product rather than a prototype. It's got to be a pretty strong idea for me to wade through all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean, and even not apps in terms of I'm going to retire or whatever. Just apps that I would find useful, like for my hobbies and those sorts of things. I've got quite a few apps on my phone that I use. One of my hobbies is around music, so I play guitar and I've sort of played music and written music and stuff since I was a teenager. And that's one of the things one of probably two hobbies I do to get away from work. And so I've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 apps on my phone that I use for that really regularly that are really useful for me, but they're in no state to release to anybody else because they do what I need them to do, but they're not at all polished and complete. But
excellent. Yeah, I play a little bit of guitar as well, but not particularly well. But
it's not about playing well. It's not about playing well. It's about playing enthusiastically.
Yeah, no, I've just recently started trying to get back into learning piano, but it's not been going well. But finding time for that.
I play piano like I play guitar. Like, I've never learnt piano, but I know enough music theory to know that how, based on what I know on guitar, I can sit down at a piano and go, right, that's middle C, therefore this is going to be this scale because I know the intervals between them, and I won't be the fastest player, but I can work stuff out. So that's good enough.
Yeah. You also do Aikido, is that right?
Hapkido, yeah.
Hapkido, yeah. Okay. I suppose that's taking a rest at the moment, I presume, with
well, you'd be surprised it was.
Environment.
Yeah, it was. So it's pretty hard to social distance when you're sweaty and you're grappling and you're physical contact and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it did. There was probably 2 or 3 weeks where it paused, but then technology is amazing. Just in the last week, we've kind of been working out how to restart the lessons online, and so we've had a couple of lessons now online. They're not, it's not as good as doing a class in person, but you can do a surprising amount, and it's amazing to me. It was amazing that how good it was just even for your mental health to go and do this. After 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it was of not doing it, being cooped up at home, like you said, not going out very much or at all, just going out in the backyard and having a class, online. At the end of it, I just felt so good. And it was only later on that I thought, I didn't realise I'd been missing it that much. I guess partly it's probably just the exercise.
Indeed.
But also it's just returning to some sort of normalcy and having some sort of contact, even if it was virtual, having some sort of contact with these people that you train with and that you like. It was just like, it's like I'd been thirsty all that time and then someone gave me a drink of water and I just suddenly went, that's what I've been missing. Yeah. So that's actually restarted. So we got a class tonight, actually. I don't know what my neighbours think, because my wife and I and our 2 kids all do it. And so all 4 of us are out in the backyard. I've got a screen hanging up on the side of my shed. I've got a projector hooked up to a laptop there, and we're all out in the backyard, going through this class. And people neighbours on 3 sides of us, I'm sure, must be just laughing. But anyway, you do what you have to do to get through these weird times, don't you?
Indeed. Yes. No, I've gone for a couple of runs recently. I haven't been doing any running for probably over a year, and I just need some exercise because I can't go to the gym anymore. Yeah. And it certainly, I feel a lot better after doing it, having a bit of exercise. So
just getting out of the house, even.
And also we live on a state highway, so there's less traffic at the moment, so it makes it a bit safer.
Yes.
So normally I'd probably drive somewhere and then go for a run, but and I can't really take the dogs out because there is still a bit of traffic. But so yes, I don't know, is there anything else you want to cover? Have you read any books, any other books other than mine recently that you'd recommend?
No, yours was the best, totally. What am I reading at the moment? Not reading books, but I'm reading books, but none sort of leap out at me. But one of the things I've been sort of working on in whatever spare time there is lately. 2 things, actually. One is about live bindings, visual live bindings in Rad Studio in Delphi CBL. It's been around for a while, and it's and as the name suggests, it's visual. You drag lines between controls. Yeah, that's fine. But I was having a conversation with someone. I think it was Ian Krigsman at a Delphi Symposium or something years ago. Actually, not years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And one or both of us were grumbling about how hard it is to do that in code. If you've ever tried to construct all your live bindings in code rather than you can do it, but it's horrible. You wouldn't do it. The point of doing it in code for me is having one place where I can go and see all of the bindings. But when you do it in code, it's 14 pages long and not at all clear. So at the time, I remember in this conversation, I was making some boast about, I could write someone could write a wrapper around this and make it much clearer. And of course he said, well, you should do it. Send it to me when you've done. So I didn't do anything for a long time, but I was on a flight late last year when before everything locked down. And I thought, actually, I'll have a go at this. And I started it, and recently I picked it up again, and I'm kind of finishing off. So it's kind of like a nice, clear interface, so you can sort of almost declaratively say, I want to bind this to this, and I want this formatting, and I want, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a single line that you can read and see what the binding does. And under the covers, it's using all of the standard live bindings. It's not introducing a whole bunch of new stuff. It's just a nice wrapper around doing it. So anyway, so I've been doing that. I should actually stick it up on GitHub. It's one of the many repos I've got on my machine that I've never got around to publishing live. So that, and then the other thing that I've been doing is I've had this ongoing sort of mission, if you like. Years and years ago, I read, long before there were generics in Delphi, I read this super interesting article in a game developer magazine. And it was this guy talking about these things called parameterized types. And they were, I can't remember what language he was writing his games in. It might have been, I can't remember. But they were newly introduced in whatever language he was using. And his thing was about, everybody thinks these things are for collections. Yeah. But they're for way more than this. And he was outlining how he was building this game development framework where every item in the game was replaceable. Like if you wanted to have a different class represent your character or your whatever, it was all replaceable using parameterized types. And this article fascinated me. And I remember I had to read it 3 or 4 times to even understand really what was going on. And it stuck with me. And then it was a few years later when Delphi introduced generics, and that's exactly what they are. And so ever since, I've been going back to this article and going, like, I'm not interested in writing games, but going back, his key point was that generics are for way more than collections.
Tier list, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, but that's so limited in scope. And so really it was about generic frameworks, generic algorithms and generic frameworks rather than just generic classes. And so I've kind of been on this, every year or two I get an idea and go, oh, that could be that, and I go back and do it. And so over the years I've done a few things like this. Actually, I think I published some of them. Like I did, one of them was using generics to create a generic state machine. So that you could really easily get in and create a state machine in your code. But all of the things that represented the different states were totally generic. You could replace them with whatever you want. And so I'm doing another one at the moment where it's kind of taking that a step further and saying, well, this is totally removed. This is actually a generic algorithm, but all of the players in the algorithm are replaceable using generics in Delphi. So, it's not for anything. It's just for my curiosity and my, satisfaction. But it gets back to that point I think you made right at the beginning of the call that, there are some people who program for a living from 9 to 5, and then after 5 o'clock, they're interested in football or in whatever they're interested in, and that's totally fine. But in my mind, I've always called them programmers. And then there are developers. This is some arbitrary classification that I've made. And there are developers who are people who from 9 to 5 they're coding, and then they go home and they might go to football, but on the drive home from football they're thinking about programming, or they're thinking about an algorithm or how they can optimize something, and then at night they're reading a book about it or they're watching a video about it or whatever. I've always felt much more in that camp. And so I think this mission that I've been on around these generic frameworks for a decade probably or more falls into that bucket. Like I've got no use for it, but it's endlessly fascinating to me.
Yeah, indeed. Something I've found recently is, I've been listening to audiobooks for years and years and years, decades, I think. But there's now quite a few software-related audiobooks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, for instance, the Pragmatic Programmer, they have their 20th anniversary book that's available on audible.com, as is the Phoenix Project and its sequel, the Unicorn Project. Yep. Both are, excellent things to listen to.
Well, but that's interesting because I've read both of those books, but those ones I can kind of imagine what they would be like as an audio book, because they're kind of
the stories.
Yeah. But the Pragmatic Programmer, what's that like as an audible?
It seemed fine.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then there's a little bit of source code, code mentioned in it, which is a bit different to follow in an audio format than reading it. But There wasn't too much. I'm not sure how much it differs from the actual book. But from memory, there's not a lot of code in the Pragmatic Programmer anyway.
A lot of it is conceptual and talking about approaches to things rather than about
behaviors and
rather than about, okay, look at this third line of source code. And
yes, the other one I'd recommend.
When do you listen to those?
So when commuting, for instance, which I've not been doing a lot of lately, so but driving to the gym, sometimes at the gym, going for a run, doing chores. I'll even listen to stuff while I'm chainsawing. Just chainsawing.
Jeez.
And also
don't listen to anything too gripping while you're chainsawing. You need to concentrate.
I don't know if I'm just chopping up wood. That's fine. If I'm chopping down a tree, I'm a bit more careful about what I'm doing. And also, you can listen at double speed or more. For fiction, I'm often at almost triple speed now. But
really,
non-fiction I can do double speed. I mean, narrators talk really slow anyway, so even if you go up to sort of 1.4 times, as you get up to sort of conversation speed.
Right.
Do
you find, like, I've never tried, I've heard of people doing this, I've never tried it. Do you find you have to, does it make it harder to concentrate? Like, you have to really concentrate, or?
So at normal speed, my mind wanders when listening to an audiobook. So I end up, thinking about something else and then not having any kind of clue what's going on in the audiobook. But because it's faster, it requires more concentration. And therefore, I do concentrate on it a bit more. But
equally, there's less opportunity to wander off and get distracted by something.
Yeah, indeed. And audiobooks are, it's difficult. I mean, you can go back. There's usually a button to go back 30 seconds or something like that to review something. But with a book, you just glancing with your eyes, it's a lot easier to reread. Stuff. So in terms of learning sort of really complicated concepts, that's not really a suitable format. But I listen to a lot of fiction, a lot of non-fiction, and I think it's great. But I was going to recommend. It's by John Sonmez. It's the Complete Software Developer's Handbook, or career guide, or something like that. And that's for people who are wanting to, be a software developer. That was probably a really good place to start.
Okay. So so after you've self-published your books, when are you going to do the narration for your audiobooks?
I was wondering about it, but I have quite a lot of code, so
that's true.
It's not a huge amount, and listing off shortcuts is not exactly the most gripping of of listens. But I'm pretty sure I will do a video, do the entire books as video and publish them to Embarcadero Academy or wherever the books end up being published. So
people can read the book, see the film.
So I think a lot of the content is far easier to understand visually than written, and there's aspects vice versa as well. So,
like I said, when I was reading it, there was a number of times I jumped off to try whatever you just said in the IDE. So from that angle, seeing it would probably mean I didn't have to jump off and see whether you were telling the truth or not.
I found it interesting that the shortcut was at Shift F10 that you were trying to do to bring up pop-up menu.
I tried it on another machine that wasn't on a VM. And it works. So I'm thinking it's something that VMware Fusion is interrupting or is kind of intercepting. So yes, I'm still on my mission to get a shortcut key assigned to quick edits.
Maybe you'll need to redefine a key or something. I mean, there is a lot of keyboards have a dedicated menu key. On them. So obviously there is a key code that you can issue.
Oh, okay, I hadn't thought of that. I was thinking of an Open Tools add-in that went in and assigned a shortcut to that action in the IDE. But I hadn't
Funny.
thought about doing it a step before that and just remapping a keystroke.
Yes.
My first strategy that isn't working is to I found someone put in a request in Quality Central for this back when Quick Edits first came out, and so I've been promoting that Quality Center report, going, oh, we should do this, you should do this, you should do this. I'm not getting a lot of takers, so I think I'm going to have to fall back to doing it myself.
Yeah, I mean, funny you should say that, because soon after I sent you the link, I kind of thought, oh, I better do a chapter on customizing the IDE. And so, the drag and dock stuff and customizing the toolbar. And the other thing I was going to do was writing an OpenTools plugin to disable the insert key.
Well, so don't do that. Now do it.
Yeah,
a shortcut key on Quick Edit.
Remap the insert key to whatever the menu pop-up key is. So
yeah, disabling the insert key would be a good one, because, like you said, I still
nothing useful. It's such an annoyance.
Yeah, it's up there with the caps lock key as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I don't mind the caps lock key. I know Nick Hodges has he was passionate about getting rid of it. I think he had a IHateTheCapsLockKey.com website for a while.
That's a little more extreme than I'm prepared.
Yeah, I briefly registered ILoveTheCapsLockKey.com, and I had, whenever you press the caps lock key, it would go like, oh, kind of sounds.
Okay, that's kind of weird.
I had a friend of my wife's do some of the audio for that, and then I never got around to releasing it. It was a bit ridiculous. I was going to release the source to it, but then source code to it, but then I realized it would be so easy to modify that to make a keylogger.
Oh yeah.
So I thought, that might be a bit irresponsible. But yeah, so yeah, that never saw the light of day. But that was quite a cool project.
Good. I'll hold my my Quick Edit thing I've been there for a while, so I'll hold that until after your book comes out, and then I can just take your code and alter it a bit to do mine. So that's awesome. That's another item off my list.
Okay. All right. Well, I suppose we should probably call it quits. How do people get in touch with you if they've got some software problem or needing help?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we've got a difficult domain name, so code-partners.com. So that's probably the easiest way. If you just go to code-partners.com, get that, or all the, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on probably something I'm not aware of.
YouTube. You got a YouTube channel with your monthly what's new.
Yeah, although I have to do that actually next week, because I was planning on not doing it during January because it was kind of summer holidays, and then by the time February rolled around, things were starting to get a little bit hectic with, we had a lot of customers who started to get us to do things around them working from home for coronavirus, and then March has just been nuts, and so now it's April and I haven't done any this year. So it's been the summer holiday break has kind of extended somewhat. But yes, there'll be an April What's New in Rad Studio video. So yeah, that's another place. That's another place where people can hassle me about whatever. Happy to be be hassled about things.
Okay, and I'll include some notes in the YouTube comments as well.
With our difficult domain name.
Yeah. Okay, all right. It's excellent talking with you again, Malcolm.
No worries, man.
We'll hopefully do this again sometime.
Yeah. Stay safe. That's a weird time at the moment, but yeah, I hope everyone can stay safe and get through this.
Yeah, the whole social isolation and what have you. Yeah, indeed. Okay, all right.
Cool. Thanks, Alister.
Thank you.